Hi everyone, so for today's video, I'm going to be showing you the rest of the time-lapse footage showing how I completed this painting here. And I'm also going to walk you through how I like to make revisions digitally first, either in Procreate on the iPad or on the computer in Photoshop. I'll explain that process and then how I complete my revisions in oil paint after making the edits digitally, and then that will be the end of the painting footage. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing this process. All that I have left to do now is just varnish it, which I might make a little short showing that later. So I am getting ready for the final layers of the oil painting I've been working on. So before I finish up, I wanted to kind of be able to test out a few things digitally before I commit with oil paint on the actual painting. So I thought I'd kind of explain how I do that process. So first I just take a photo of the oil painting I've been working on. I usually just do this with my iPhone, and then I upload it to Photoshop and crop it so that the image is not distorted in any way. You can see how I've cropped it for this painting. Okay, so here you can see that I have opened up the painting on Procreate. I also use Photoshop sometimes, but it's whatever you want to do. And then I can test out different edits, like I said, digitally. So, for example, what I'm thinking about doing with the next layer or two of this painting is make the moon maybe a little bit more saturated. So, let me get sort of a orangey color. And then I'll change this layer mode. Since I would probably apply this as a glaze with a lot of oil, I can set this to multiply. I think that would be the most similar to traditionally oil painting. And then, ooh, I kind of like the color, but that brush was way too big, so let me make sure. Okay, you can see. So, like, maybe I would, and you know, I kind of like the way that's looking. I mean, not totally, but I like how saturated the moon is now. That's kind of like more what I was wanting to go for, but it was kind of hard to get that saturation when I was using the oil paint. So maybe in, you know, the upcoming layers I can bump up that saturation. And then a lot of times, you know, you can do similarly, like test out maybe doing like a reddish glaze on the face or on the skin, just to give the skin a bit more life. Okay, that's too strong. I made the opacity of the brush weaker, but I can also decrease the opacity of the layer itself. And so this isn't replicating the oil process exactly, but I'm just able to test out different things before I commit with oil paint, which I really prefer. Okay, that looks horrible. I'm just messing around. I'm gonna mess around a lot slower and, you know, try out some different glazes, and then maybe figure out if I want to make the rocks any more detailed, maybe add a reddish glaze over the knees. So I'll export the Procreate video when I upload this time lapse, and you can see kind of what I end up with, and then I can show you the final digital painting and all the changes I made, and then I'll show me trying to basically recreate those edits in the oil on the actual painting. Okay, so here's the time-lapse footage from Procreate. I start by trying to like up the brightness of the clouds around the moon and kind of making them feel a bit more glowy by adding a bit more like orange colors. And now I'm bumping up the highlights on the skin. Most of the edits I make are just darkening shadows and bumping up the highlights on the skin. Basically just trying to like increase the contrast for the entire painting. And then I added kind of a dark border around the painting, kind of like a dark multiply layer on like a low opacity, just to kind of help your eye focus to the center of the painting more. I really like that, how that effect looks. And then here's before the digital edits, and then after. So you can see there aren't a ton of changes, but I think the small changes I made do make a difference. So now I'm oiling out, and then I add, I'm working on, you know, bumping up the brightness of those clouds and kind of making them a bit more, have a bit more color, so increase the chroma of that area. And I'm kind of trying to vary the color, temperature, as well as the brightness. And I'm just doing these little tiny brush strokes, and then once the paint gets tacky, I'll blend out a lot of those brush strokes. I won't blend it out so hard that it kind of smooths everything out. I still want some of that texture from the little brush strokes left, because I just prefer that look. You could totally blend it out if you wanted to, if you're doing like something similar, but yeah, so here you can see I'm using like a cooler color now, and again, just adding little tiny brush strokes around to kind of like imply more detail in the clouds. And now I'm bumping up the kind of glowiness of the moon, and I kind of I added some like bright orange paint around the outside of the moon, like I was kind of showing digitally in Procreate, how I kind of did that multiply layer with that bright orange color. So I'm just kind of recreating those edits that I had made in Procreate. And bumping up the brightness on the skin. And again, I'm doing those small little brush strokes, but I will, once the paint gets tacky, I will blend it out so it looks a bit more smooth. And I also am using lead white in this layer instead of titanium white, which I had been using in all of the other layers. Lead white is a bit more transparent, so I find that it looks really good when you layer it compared to titanium white, which is a bit more opaque. So yeah, I really enjoyed using lead white for this layer, but you have to be careful to not get it on your skin or eat it, because it has lead in it. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And then I'm trying to, the leg was looking a bit too like tubular for me. It would just look like a plain cylinder. So I'm trying to like show the form and the structure of like the shin and the foot a bit more, and like the knee for example. Also, I am adding a rim light, you can see here, from the moon behind her. The lighting I'm doing for this painting is kind of more theatrical, where like the main light source on her is obviously not the moon. It's kind of like some spotlight that we can't really see, but I just kind of like the look of that. But I wanted her to look like she belonged in that environment a bit more, so I thought adding some rim light might help with that. And then I wanted to kind of imply more detail with the hair, so I added some more little tiny hair strands near like the tail of her hair, where it kind of flips around. And then I'm bumping up those highlights on the hair as well. Okay, so now that the paint has become tacky, I'm blending out those tiny brush strokes, but making sure to have a light enough hand that I'm not like completely smearing away everything that I just did. And same for the skin as well. And now I wanted to darken a lot of the shadows on her body, so I'm using, again, I believe it's raw umber paint and maybe sepia as well, and a lot of medium to make it even more transparent, even though both of those paints are already transparent on their own. But that just makes it really easy for kind of like glazing and blending things out. So yeah, it looks a little scary when you first put it down and it's all like streaky and a little crazy looking, but then you just blend it out a bit more and then it looks really nice and kind of adds a nice, it just easily darkens everything. So it's really nice when you just want to like darken an entire area. And then if you don't like it, or if you do too much, you can just wipe it out with a paper towel and it's fine. And then here I'm working on that kind of dark border where I kind of darken things up in the side. So I think I'm maybe using the same paint that I used to like darken the shadows on the body to just kind of add that dark border around the painting, which I find like yeah, that dark border, it can really like bring your eye to the focus of the painting, like to the figure, for example. So here's the final painting, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.